Okay, good morning, everybody. Good morning, just 2. Welcome back to school. How are you doing? I hope your holiday has been good. Hope you have been enjoying your holiday. Hope you've been helping your parents at home. I hope you've been good children so far. And I hope you've been reading your books. Very, very important. Because now that you're on holiday, and I mean, with the lockdown as well, you might tend to not read your books, but now it's important for you to read your books because the holiday might be long, but when you resume back to school, you need to still remember the things you are being taught. So it's important that everything you've been taught from last time, make sure you still go back and study them. Well, I'd like to welcome you all again to school. I'm Mr. James. Yeah, and I'm going to be taking you mathematics. So I'll say welcome to today's math class. Basically, so far we have the school is resuming third term work with you. So wherever you are, whatever you are doing, make sure you get your notebooks right now. Get your pen because you are going to be writing. Make sure you are good. You are going to make sure you are writing because every class that you are going to be taking online in all your subjects, you are expected to have a note for them, so that by the time we resume, you'll be able to show the notes and your teachers can mark. Is that okay? So for this math class, you need to have your math book with you and your pen for writing. And also because you'll be given classworks and assignments as well. So your classwork, when you finish solving your classwork, you can decide to snap it and send it back to the WhatsApp group, or you can type it in a document and send it to the WhatsApp group, or you can type it on the WhatsApp group and send it. Is that okay? So that is how to take that's how to respond to classworks and assignments that will be given to you on this platform. Also, we might be having a way for you to do it better. So just make sure you are available for responses. Good. So let's move on. Let's say thank you to our proprietor and proprietress for giving us this platform to use, that we are able to um, teach you guys online. You know, though we might not be able to see physically, but we are together, and we are teaching you. And though you may not see us physically as well, but you can hear our voices as we teach you, and you can see the things we are teaching you. Is that okay? So just focus and then appreciate your teachers, appreciate the proprietors, appreciate the proprietor for this good work. All right, thank you. Let's move on. So mathematics, for this first section, we'll be talking about linear graphs. Linear graphs, I believe in mathematics you must have heard of linear graphs. If you've not heard of linear graphs, you know, then you are hearing about it for the first time. So it's important for you to focus and listen carefully. Okay, so the first topic this time we are going to be talking about is linear graphs in two variables, using graph to solve real life situation. When we're talking about two variables, it means there are two things that you use to plot the graphs. Do you get it now? So there are two variables that determine how the graph is going to look like. Don't worry, we would see an example of the graph in this class. So let your mind be rest assured that everything that you are going to be seeing, you understand them. So there are three major things that we'll be teaching in this class, and in this particular video you see we'll talk about the first ones, and then we'll talk about the last set in the next class. All right, let's move to the first one. In linear graph, we are going to be talking about the first one. We're talking about distance. 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 Okay, so what is it that we're going to be looking at in distance? I believe you understand. Okay, if you don't know what distance is, distance is the length between 2 points. For example, um the distance from your house to the road is the length from your house to the road. Now, that is, how long is your house from how long is it from your house to the road? That is what distance means. Do you understand? I hope you people are writing down. If there is anything you do not understand, please make sure you type a question on the platform on WhatsApp. So do you see now? So now distance is the length between two places. You see, what is the length from your house to the main road now, for example? That is the distance of your house, between your house and the road. Is that clear now? If you get it, that's it. So look at this now. Graphs are used to show a relationship. Graphs are used always to show relationship between two quantities. That is two values, or two quantities basically. So a graph is used to show the relationship. What does it mean? It means that it is used to describe what is connecting those two quantities. Those two quantities, it is a graph that shows you what exactly those two quantities are talking about. Is helping you to describe what those two quantities actually represent. Do you understand now? So I'll be making sure that you get a few things very important. So now this is it. A graph shows the relationship. Make sure you underline that word relationship between two quantities. Let's put it like that. Two quantities. Now, do you get it now? So that's what a graph is. Now, there is something called a continuous graph. Now, a continuous graph is in the form of a continuous line. Take a look at this now. Look at this. This is a continuous graph. Is in the form of a continuous line. Do you see that now? And what does it do? It also shows a relationship because it's a graph. Every graph would show a relationship between two quantities. Do you see that now? That's what we have here, between two quantities. Do you get it now? So it's in a continuous form. It does not bend, it does not cut, it does not turn to another side. It's just continuous like that, a straight line, but it's on the graph. Do you get it now? Now look at this now. A distance time graph. What is a distance time graph now? A distance time graph is used to calculate speed. Is used to sorry. A distance time graph shows the distance traveled against the time taken and is used to calculate speed. Do you see now? Is used to now. Oh, sorry. There is a mistake here. Sorry. This is not travel, it is time. Yeah. So correct that inside your note. Okay, good. So looking at this now, it says a distance time graph. A distance time graph is what? Is a graph that shows the distance. Now take a look at that now. The distance traveled. That is important. Against the time taken. What does this mean? What does this mean rather? It means that for you to get to plot a distance time graph, it is based on two important things. Number one is distance, number two is time. Do you see now? And distance and time are actually always used to calculate what? They are used to calculate speed. Do you see now? Because the speed of any object is always defined by distance, that's d, over time. Do you see that now? The speed is always equal to what? Distance over time. Do you see that now? That's how we see. So that's why we say a distance time graph, that is distance and time, is a graph for both distance and time. They are used to show the distance that was traveled and the time it took to travel at to travel that distance. And by the time you are done with that, it shows what? It shows the calculation of what? The speed. Do you see that now? So a distance time graph is also called a what? Travel graph. I'd like you to underline this travel graph. Do you see that now? It's also called a what? Travel graph. Do you get it now? It's also called a what? Travel graph. Right? So underline travel graph as well. Now, in distance time graph, or also known as travel graph, the time is usually plotted on the x-axis. Time is usually plotted where? On the x-axis. So if you are asked, if somebody asks you in a distance and time graph, in a distance time graph or in a travel graph, the time is usually plotted on which of the axis? Your answer is going to be where? The x-axis. Do you see that now? While your distance is going to be plotted on the y-axis. Do you see that now? Good. Now, your distance is going to be plotted on the y-axis. So now, look at this example now. Let's look at this example quickly. Remember all the things that I showed you. Remember a distance time graph is used to show the distance and the time it takes to calculate a particular speed. And remember I told you that speed is what? Distance over time. Do you see that now? So let's move on. Make sure you write this down. Speed equals distance over time. Now, don't just write it in your book, just write it somewhere. Write it in a corner of your book, so that you will not forget, and put it inside a box so that you always be seeing it to remember. Good. So now look at this question, this example that we're talking about. Before that, remember your time is always usually plotted on the x-axis and the distance is plotted on the y-axis. Good. Now the graph below, there is a graph after this page. Now I'm going to show you the graph shows the journey of a man from his home to another town. So he traveled from his house to a particular town. So now they now said we are going to use the graph to find number one, we are going to find the time taken, the time it took the man to travel from his house to that town. Let me do this properly. Yes, we need to travel the time it took the man rather to travel for 75 kilometers. That's the first question. Do you see that now? We want to find out how long did it take the man to travel 75 kilometers. Actually, we don't know yet the total distance from his house to the town, right? We've not been told yet. We just know that on the graph, we will just look at, okay, what is the time it took for him to travel from his house and travel for 75 kilometers. Do you see that now? Good. That's the first one. Then the second question now says that find the distance. Sorry. Do you see now? Find the distance it travels in 3 hours. So how far will it go in 3 hours? Do you see that now? That's the second question. Now the third question is, now calculate, he said find what? The time taken again to cover a distance of 175 kilometers. So how long will he spend if he is going to travel for 175 kilometers? Then finally calculate the man's speed in kilometers. Remember, speed is equal to what? Distance over time. Now this distance is going to be the total distance from his house to the town, total distance from his house to the town, and the time will be the total time it took him from his house to the town. Do you see that now? Is that clear? Okay, so let's move on. Now look at this graph. This is the graph. The graph you see on your x-axis now. On your x-axis, you see the time. Do you see that now? On your x-axis, you have time. Do you see that now? And on your y-axis, you have what? The distance. Do you see that now? Remember, as we said, your x-axis is always on, your time is always on what? The x-axis, while your distance is always on the y-axis. This is your y-axis and this is your x-axis. Do you see that now? So now, looking at this graph now, what are the questions that we were told? He said, A, find the time it takes to travel for 75 kilometers. This is your y-axis. This is this is your y-axis. This is your x-axis. Now, 75 kilometers. Now, this is the distance. This is the distance where we calculate the kilometers. So coming from 0, he travel, reach 50, travel, and then he reaches somewhere here. No, somewhere here. Yes. No, sorry. Let's take it again. He travels up. So he travels up. No, that's 100. But 75 kilometers is somewhere here, right? Somewhere on this side. Good. So now we now trace that to somewhere here, and then we'll find out that the time it takes him, you find the solution in the next page. Now it takes the person almost 1.5 hours. Do you see now? Let's see. Okay, it's even indicated in the graph. Look at this now. See this? You see this? Okay, this is 0 to 50, 50 to 100. Do you see that now? So between 50 and 100, we have 75. Do you see that now? This is the point. Do you see that now? That is the point, and that is 1.5 hours. Do you see that now? That's the time it takes him to travel for 75 kilometers. Do you see that now? And you see it here. Okay, let me show you here. You see the answers here now. You see it's 75 kilometers. It travels 1 hour 30 minutes, or you say 1 hour, 1.5 hours rather. Do you get it now? So that's this place to this place. Now the second question says find the distance traveled in 3 hours. So if 75 kilometers is 1.5 hours, now where is 3 hours here? This is 1, this is 2, this is 3 hours, right? Good. So let's trace 3 hours up. Do you see it now? So then you trace it. You find out that is 150 kilometers. Do you see that now? So for 3 hours, it traveled 150 kilometers. And then the next question says for 175 kilometer, how long will it take? What's the time taken? Now, before you plot your graph now, this is what you do first in this place. this is the graph here. So we come to this place and look at this now. So you remember the scaling. I don't know if you've been taught how to scale on a graph. Now 2 units on the x-axis equal to 1 hour. That's what you are seeing here. You see that this is from this place to this place is 1 unit, then to this place is 2 units. So that these 2 units is what we regard as 1 hour. So the next 2 units will now become 2 hours. Then the next unit after that, the next 2 units after that will become 3 hours. And the next unit after that will become 4 hours. Do you see that now? 4 hours. Good. So that's what I need you to understand. So that's the interpretation of these 2 units on the x-axis to be equal to 1 hour. And then 1 unit, that means that one of those units will be equal to half hour. That's half of 1 hour, or you can say 30 minutes. Do you see that now? This 1 unit will be 30 minutes. 30 minutes. 30 minutes. Do you see that now? Good. So and then the whole thing will be what? 1 hour, because half of 1 hour is actually 30 minutes, if you know it. Good. So then for the vertical axis, or the y-axis, which shows distance in kilometer, your 2 units can be represented on the y-axis as 50 kilometers, as you see there now. That's from here to here is 1 unit, and then to this place is 2 units to represent what? 50 kilometers. And then another 2 units plus 50 plus 50, 100, plus another 50, you have 150, plus another 50, you have what? 200. Do you see that now? So that's adding two units for adding 50 kilometers. Good. So we can use a travel graph to find the distance and time at any point on the graph. Do you see now? Just as we were doing, you use this distance graph to find any distance on any time on this graph. Do you see that now? How? Now, the time taken to travel 75 kilometers is what? 1 hour 30 minutes. 1 hour 30 minutes rather. How is that possible? 75. This is 75 here. This is 75 here, right? So 75 like this. 1 hour 30 minutes. Do you see that now? This place. Half. That's 1 unit. Remember, 1 unit is 30 minutes, Abi. This is already 2 units to make 1 hour. You see now? Then 1 unit, half of 1 hour is what? 30 minutes. You see that now? So we have 1 hour, 30 minutes. Do you see that now? That's for 75 kilometers. Do you see that now? So now, for the next one, the B, I hope people are writing all these things. If you've not written it, rewind and write them down. If you are not writing down, make sure you write them down. You need to now look at, you see now, it's indicated here. You need to see the arrow on the graph that's as it is plotted. Now, the distance traveled in 3 hours is going to be 150 kilometers, like we did the other time. 3 hours. The question is, how it says what's distance traveled in 3 hours. So we look for 3 hours. This is 2 units equal to 1 hour, and that 2 units equals to 2 hours. Next 2 units, 3 hours. This is 3 hours, right? So we trace it up to the line. Do you see now? That's the line, and then we trace the line straight like this. You see, for 3 hours we have what? We have 150 kilometers. Do you see that now? Do you see that now? So that's 150 kilometers for 3 hours, as you see in the arrow. Now, it took the man 3.5 hours, 3 hours 30 minutes to cover a distance of 175 kilometers. How is this possible? According to the question, it says, what is the time it will take to cover 175 kilometers, right? Good. So now come back to the graph. Come back to the graph. So we now say 175. So between 150 and 200, right? You have 175. Good. So now we have 175. We trace it, and we get to this point, and then we trace it down again. You see now it is in the half. And what is half? 30 minutes, Abby, right? So that, and this is already from here to here, we already have 3 hours. 3 hours. Do you see now? So 3 hours plus another half of 30 minutes, which is what? 3 hours 30 minutes for what? 175 kilometers. Do you see that now? That is how we got this one. For 175 kilometers, sorry, 175 kilometers, you have 3 hours 30 minutes. Do you see that now? Now, for the final question, it says, the final question says that what is the man's speed in kilometers? Now, when we look at it now, the man, you see that in this our graph, in the distance here, this distance, do you notice where was indicated as the location of the town? This is the location of the town, right? And what is the location of the town? 175 kilometers. Can you see? That was where we indicated as 175 kilometers before. Do you see now? So that means from his home, from his house straight to the town is from 0 to 50 to 150 to 100 to 100, 150, and then to 175. That was the distance it took him to get to the town. 175 kilometers. So they now said, what is what? The speed of the man. Do you see that now? So calculate the man's speed. So if the man came from his house to the town, 175 kilometers. So when we traced it, remember the other time when we traced it, it was what? 3 hours and 30 minutes, Abby, for 175 kilometers. And do you remember what the formula for speed is? What's the formula for speed? The formula for speed is what? Distance over time. Do you see now? So that means the man's speed will now be 175 kilometers all over the time, which is 3 hours 30 minutes. And 3 hours 30 minutes also means 3.5 hours. Also means 3.5 hours. And half means 0.5. If you remember, if you represent this in decimal form, it becomes what? 0.5. Do you see now? So that will be 175 divided by 3.5. Do you see that now? 3.5 hours. And when we do that, do you see that there now? Let me clear it for you. Do you see it here like this now? So when you do that, when you divide it, the final answer is what? 50 kilometers per hour. That is how to represent the value for speed. Do you see that now? I hope this is a simple work for you. If you don't understand, watch the video again. If you watch it again and you don't understand, ask a question on the platform. Make sure you understand the man's speed is what? 50 kilometers per hour. Why is it kilometers per hour? That is, kilometer is up. When you do 175 kilometer, you see now, over 3.5 hours. Do you see that now? So when you finish dividing these two, it will remain kilometer and hour. So that is why we have kilometer divided by hour, or that's why we have kilometer divided by hour here. or kilometer per hour. Do you get it now? So that was the speed that the man traveled. So now this is your classwork. This is the classwork I have for you. I'd like you to take a look at this classwork very well. Take a look at this classwork very well. The question is, a girl walks along a road at a speed of 100 meters per minute. Now remember, this is talking about meters per minute. Now the other one, we're dealing with meters per hour and kilometers per hour. Now we are talking about meters per minute. So your distance in your the distance in your on your y-axis will be represented in minute in meters rather, while um your what's it called, your time will be represented in seconds, or you convert your distance to kilometers, and you convert your time from seconds, you convert it to you convert it sorry you change this one to what, minutes. Do you see now? So if you want to use meters for your distance, you use seconds for your time. Do you see now? You use seconds for your time on the x-axis, because you'll be plotting a graph, and this is your y-axis. So but if you want to use kilometers on your y-axis, then you use per hour rather. I mean to say hour in your x-axis for time. Do you get it now? So that is that. So look at the question. The question says, a girl walks along a road at a speed of 100 meters per minute. Now the first question for you to do is complete the table below. That is, you start plotting the graph. So you draw your graph like this. So your time, you represent your time. Maybe you have 0, you have 0 here, you have 1, you have 2, you have 3, you have 4. You see now? And then each this thing, you have 100. Here you have 200. Here you have 300. Here you have 400, and so on and so forth. You see now? So here you can say your on your x-axis, two units to be equal to one minute. Do you see now? And then on your y-axis, 2 units to be equal to what, 100. Do you see that now? So that you will be having hundreds. So now the first one, for 1 minute you trace 100. For 2 minutes you trace 200. For 3 minutes you continue to trace like that. For 4 units, 5 units, and so on and so forth. So when you're done, you draw the straight line across, and then you begin to say, using a scale of 2 centimeters. Now this is the information. Using a scale of 2 centimeters to 1 minute, like I have given you in this place here. In this place, you see 2 centimeters rather. 2 centimeters to 1 minute here, as you see. Do you see now? And 2 centimeters according to the question. Now on the horizontal axis, which is your x-axis, this place, and 2 centimeters like this. Now 2 centimeters on the vertical axis, that's your y-axis, to draw to be 100 meters. Do you see that now? 100 meters. Good. Now on the vertical axis, draw the graph of the information. So that this is the graph that you are looking at like this now. This is the graph here. This is the graph you are seeing on the do you see now? So make sure you complete the table, you draw the graph. Do you see now? And then the last one, use the graph to find how far the girl has walked. How far means distance. Do you see now? The girl has walked after 4.6 minutes. That is 4 minutes and what? 4 minutes and what? Whatever it is that you know, it's supposed to be 4.6 minutes. 4.6 minutes. You find it each centimeter, each centimeter has its own representation on your graph, so that you can indicate 4.6 units. You know that this will be one unit. This will be 1 unit immediately after the middle, that between 4 minutes and 5 minutes. The middle of 4 and 5, you just have just 1 unit after that middle, and that's your 6 minutes. And then how long will it take her to walk 380 meters? So 380 meters is between 340. You trace it and locate the amount of minutes it will take her to complete that walk. That's the time taking. So that's that for the question. And then this is your reading assignment. This is your homework. You take your essential mathematics textbook. It's chapter 16. It's from pages 184 rather, pages 184 to 187. You find them there. If you have questions, always ask. And then you do exercise 16.6. You find it, questions number 1 and number 3. It's in page 201. Page 201. So that's that. All right, that is all for today. Welcome back to school once again. See you next time. Good night.